breaking news.
Due to the speed and unpredictable nature of this fire, hundreds of cars like this one ended up stuck and abandoned. Make sure that you do this. Buckle up. It is one of the best ways to keep yourself and your passengers safe, and it's also the law. Senator Sanders has repeatedly called for President Trump to acknowledge the realities of climate change. The assessment is over 180 pages long, but federal agencies recommend that you read it. It looks like a bottle of lip gloss, and all you have to do is take the applicator and swipe it against the item that you want to protect. There are emergency call boxes like this one that students can use to reach campus police. But here on the nature trail, the closest call box may have been too far from reach. It might be hard to imagine drone racing as a professional sport, but as you're about to find out, you can actually win some serious money being a serious competitor. The biggest increases in daily average traffic, 63%. That's right here at Eaton Road. Winners wear a sash and a crown, symbols not just of their titles, but of the leadership and compassion they aim to bring to the community. Wow, it is raining cats and dogs out here. The one thing that would make it a little better, though, is if it were actually raining men, right, guys? After the campfire, phone alerts like these are now more frequent than ever, a new normal for a community that still wonders why they were not warned the day of the campfire.
It was so fast and so aggressive.
Brandy Harner can't forget November 8th, 2018.
I screamed for my son to come outside, and nobody got a phone call, nobody got anything.
Despite signing up for emergency alerts on her cell phone and landline, Harner says she got no notice to evacuate. The only message from PG&E sent 2 days prior warning of a possible power outage.
If that fire would have started just 2 hours earlier, most people would have died.
The way the evacuation notices went out is not acceptable.
Mike Zuccolillo is Paradise Town Councilman. He's working to understand why the Code Red system failed that day.
One of our fundamental aspects of our evacuation is you don't leave till you're told to. But in this instance, you had people waiting on notices that never came through.
The Butte County Sheriff's Office says 15,000 of the 30,000 Code Red alerts were not received.
You know, these are great, lots of technology, lots of tools. At the same time, when this goes down, people almost forgot what to do.
Town leaders now considering ways to revamp their emergency notification system, which could include a standalone siren. And it could sound like this. The Butte County Sheriff's Office introduced the high-low siren in their patrol cars earlier this year, using it for evacuations during the Swedes fire.
What the campfire showed us is that there are situations that develop so rapidly that they outpace all of our resources.
Sheriff Honey acknowledging there is no catch-all solution to emergency notifications, asking people to have their evacuation plans in place.
You can't rely upon one source for your information.
His office now developing a phone line for evacuation information, working with the Butte County Office of Emergency Services to alert people even if they have no cell service. He's also working with Cal OES to create standardized terms for emergency situations in different languages, from Spanish to Hmong.
I have all of our important papers now, everything in one spot.
Back to Brandy, she says she now gets emergency alerts more often than she expects.
The beeping noise.
But she appreciates them. And despite all that's happened, she's now looking at options to rebuild in Paradise. 1 year after the campfire.
I raised my son there, and it's home.
It's the noise no dog owner wants to hear.
The wheezing and like his stomach just contracting.
The sound of your best friend slowly dying.
The vet said, I don't even know how he's made it this far. I was like, oh my God.
Chico State student Chelsea Camara adopted little boy Blue in April. But just weeks later, Camara says she was forced to put the puppy down, and she blames Wags and Whiskers, the local rescue where she adopted him.
The extent of care that they gave wasn't enough.
Camara says Blue began to cough and gag shortly after she brought him home and claims the rescue did not give adequate care or correctly diagnose Blue's condition, forcing her to take him for medical treatment at the VCA.
Not even 20 minutes later, their veterinarian did one chest x-ray, and that showed that he had life-threatening pneumonia.
Camara took home a $3,000 bill and the cremated remains of her beloved Blue.
Oh, look.
This is not the first time Wags and Whiskers has been under fire. We've received claims and medical records from 2 other separate parties who say they also adopted sick dogs from the rescue. Does your rescue adopt out sick dogs?
No.
We sat down with Lucy Parks, executive director of Wags and Whiskers. Is there any sort of guarantee that when people adopt from you that the dogs are healthy?
No. They come from unknown sources. They come from shelters, which is unknown because we don't know what their history is before that. The guarantee is if the dog is sick, we'll treat it. You can return it for a full refund.
The adoption contract states the rescue makes every effort to make sure adopters are given a healthy pet, but that there may be issues the rescue is not aware of at the time of adoption. People can also use the rescue's medical services for 14 days after adoption, free.
Are some dogs going to get sick? Yes. It's very unfortunate. But we pay for medical staff to help take care of these animals, and we're never going to be 100% no matter what.
In Camara's case, she brought Blue back to Wags and Whiskers to be checked out within the 14 days. They texted her saying they thought he could go home. That same day, she picked him up and took him to the VCA. Blue never made it home. Do you feel like there could be any possible room for improvement?
There's always things we can do better. I don't sit here and say, hey, we're perfect, and no, there's nothing we can do better or different.
Park says Wags and Whiskers has saved over 6,000 lives, many from high-kill shelters in the past 3.5 years. And what makes her rescue different is it does not discriminate on which animals to save.
He had the brightest blue eyes.
Camara says she is not looking for sympathy or an apology at this point.
Just change the way that they're caring for the dogs. Make sure that this doesn't happen to anyone else.
She hopes no one has to go through what she and Blue did.
I don't want another college kid or, another family, a little kid getting so excited about bringing a puppy home, and then this happens.
Alan, Wags and Whiskers released the following statement just days after our report last week. It reads, in part, "We are saddened by the news that a dog rescued by Wags and Whiskers died shortly after being adopted. We are reviewing our policies and procedures to better understand circumstances and make improvements to our adoption process going forward." On the tarmac at the Chico Municipal Airport, an exhilarating sight. A rare pair of legends in aviation history beaming beneath the sun.
I enjoy it. It brings back a lot of memories.
And here to pay a visit, a man familiar with what it takes to fly.
It's hours of boredom for about 15 minutes of sheer terror.
Chico native Milt Boyer flew B-29 heavy bombers in the Korean War.
In those days, you could fly 25 missions and be sent home. Not many people made 25 missions.
One of his best friends, he says, flew a B-17, not unlike this one, during the Second World War and was held as a POW.
The people flying this during the war were 17, 18, 19-year-old kids.
We head inside the historic aircraft to see what it was like for the young crew members on board. Heading up to the cockpit, the walkway is cramped and narrow.
These planes were not built for comfort. They were built for purpose.
Right now we are standing just beneath the bomb bay doors, and I want to show you something special. These signatures, messages left behind by visiting veterans who once flew on a flying fortress years ago.
I had a veteran came out and flew with us a couple of months ago. As soon as we started the first engine, he was instantly 20 years younger.
The war changed the lives of not just men, but women like Bernadine. She left a literal mark on this plane as a Boeing factory worker.
And we've had them walk up and touch the side of the aircraft on the outside, and you can tell they're saying goodbye.
These flying legends, a physical reminder of what was lost and gained, preserving a country's history and the memories of many. For the people left here on the ridge, living in these deep forests, November 8th remains a day that will never be forgotten, defined by harrowing tales of escape, bravery, and resilience.
My husband had to tell my kids, your mom might not make it home. This is awful. Nicole Jolly is a survivor.
Death was right there, and I just kept looking at the fire just coming up the trees and right at me.
But she is, at her core, a healer, working as a nurse at Feather River Hospital since 2015. It was a text message from her husband that fateful morning and not an emergency alert that told her the flames were coming.
Within 15 minutes, it all changed, and police and firefighters were on our back door. It was just sheer panic at that point. Don't worry about belongings, just grab your patients.
Jolly and another nurse were among the last to leave.
We ended up evacuating the hospital, going down Pence Road, and then we turned on Pearson. And that was the fatal mistake that we made. The fire just came through Pearson and just came right over top of our cars and started burning our cars with us in them. All of a sudden, I got reception and I was able to call my husband, and he said, "You're gonna have to run." And I said, there's no way I can run through this, Nick. I said, "You don't understand what I'm running through." And he said, "Honey, you're gonna have to run."
So she did. Somehow, through all the smoke and flame, clothing on fire, Jolly found a fire engine stuck in traffic. Firefighters pulled her inside.
And then out of nowhere, we hear a dozer coming up behind us. And because we're just stuck in traffic, you can't move anywhere. Everybody's vehicle's on fire in front of us, so it's just blocking the roads. And so the dozer comes up behind us, and you pull down the fire curtain and you could see him. And turned out later his name was Joe Kennedy, pushing these burning vehicles out of the road, and he cleared a path for us. We were able to get behind him, turn around, and head back to the hospital.
A month after the disaster, she and her family reunited with the firefighters who saved her life.
He's a hero. He's everything. Oh, see, you better take it and run, Joel.
Jolly lives a peaceful life now, spending much of it with her family and prize-winning horses. And while the wounds of trauma run deep, this nurse shares words she hopes will help her community heal.
Everybody lost something in this fire, and I want people to be there for each other, because I feel like that's what's made this town so great.
Rebuilding a town is no easy task, but it's one that Paradise Town officials are now working to take on. And with this new recovery plan in hand, they're hoping to address many of the concerns of the people here on the ridge.
Up and down the Skyway.
The roads are definitely important, and they're getting abused a lot.
People in Paradise shared what they hope to see in the future of their town after the fire.
The next most important thing, I think, is affordable housing.
Sewers first thing for infrastructure.
Better evacuation routes.
8 months after the disaster, an official long-term recovery plan is now in place. The 143-page guide opens the gates for town council to seek funding from outside sources.
Most communities with a disaster can't even start this process until a year and a half.
Lauren Gill, Paradise Town manager, says the priority now is giving people a clear path to rebuild.
We're really trying to move quickly so that we can first help get our residents back home.
A daunting task.
Public safety, you have roads, you have transportation, you have housing, you have all different types of housing. We have to put it all back together.
And that's where the recovery plan comes in. Now, nothing in here is set in stone, but it is a roadmap of sorts with actionable steps on how the town can get back on its feet.
The number one thing I would like to see is a sewer system put in.
A common concern. The recovery plan lists a working sewer system as a primary community priority, with a development timeline of 3 to 5 years. The estimated cost, $60 to $100 million.
Have affordable housing and just come back home.
Affordable housing is dependent on a working sewer system and is listed as a Tier 2 project. The estimated price tag for materials and labor, $11 million. The development timeline ranges from 2 to 4 years.
Rebuilding a whole community takes a lot of time and thought and effort.
And a lot of money. But with the long-term recovery plan in hand, Council can now turn to outside sources for financial support.
It is a lot of work. I mean, it's a challenge. We're up for it. People love this town, and that's what keeps us going.
The recovery plan also introduces a project for an emergency notification system, which incorporates the use of a siren in the case of an emergency. We've posted the entire plan on our website, actionnewsnow.com. Just head over to the news links section for a look. Reporting in Paradise, Stephanie Lynn, Action News Now.